office of the Spirit of knowledge was resting upon me. And the angel of the Lord came to me and said, I want to show you something. And the angel of the Lord tapped me like this. And I enter into the Spirit of knowledge realm. And as I'm there, I see this young boy. And as I see him strangling a cat. And I said, what is that little boy doing? And then the angel of the Lord fast forward his life and showed me that he was killing random people. And that he was a serial killer. And then the angel of the Lord showed me where he was sitting at this desk. And I was just listening to this man, and he was the warden of this prison, a private prison. And I hear him speaking to his secretary in confidence. And then, as I'm hearing that, it leaves this scene and it goes to another scene. And I'm looking in the scene and I see a bunch of men, young men, who are gangsters. And I see them being raided by the feds, and I see them being arrested. I see that they are now booked in and they're in prison. I see that they're in prison. After they were arrested, the scene went to them in prison, in this private prison, that this warden is over. That is a serial killer in secret. And so, the angel of the Lord begins to talk to me. It says, yes, he's a serial killer. He started off killing animals, and he's been killing all his life, and no one ever suspects him, and he's never been caught. So then, I see this warden. He dresses up as an inmate. And the people in the facility that works there, they know that it's a program where people come in as undercover inmates for documentations, for surveys, to see what brings the inmates into the facility, and they do it for rehabilitation purposes is what it's for, but they do it undercover. So the warden, he dresses himself up and pretends to be an undercover inmate, and so the people in the facility, they don't know that this is the warden. They just think that it is one who's there on mission, on assignment, dressed up, pretending to be an inmate. Okay, so I see that the warden enters in. And then so I see the warden, he's in the kitchen, and he's walking around, and he has these drugs. He puts the drugs inside of this food. The inmates are served. Now, he goes in and he's in his room with the inmates. He's in his pod, in his room with the inmates that he's assigned to be in. And I see this gang that is in the prison that everyone is afraid of. I see this gang walk up to him. And they walk up to him because the way this gang is basically bullying him and saying that you need to put, if you don't want to be murdered in here, you need to put money on our books, and you need to give us our commissary, or you will die in here. So they basically bullied him into coming up under their so-called cover. But what they don't know is that he the real killer. He a serial killer in disguise there to murder, to satisfy his itch, is what they don't know. That this has been planned to murder them. So he acts like he's afraid, and he gives it to them, and he says he's gonna put money on the books, and he gives them food and stuff like that. And then so later on that night, after they eaten their food, and they're off in a deep sleep. See, the undercover serial killer Warden, he knew, and he was very intelligent, and he knew about medicines and drugs, and just about how much to put into one's food to sedate them long enough to do what he needed to do, and so nothing could be detected. So they're off to sleep. He gets up and he murders 3 of those gang members. And he sets it up and frame it as in if the other gang members that were their robberies had did it. He got up when he was done, and because he is a warden and he has credentials and knows how to change credentials and knows his way in the system, he left. And because he was undercover, he did not have to say anything to anyone else. They knew that he was there for a purpose, so they just let him walk freely. But they don't know that he's the warden. He leaves, and now there's 3 men are dead that are gangsters. And everybody thinks that it was gang activity, gang violence, when it was not. It was a serial killer in disguise that was the warden of that private facility. Ecclesia.